Good morning. This is Dr. Craig Stern at Pharma Pharmaceutical Consultants and ProData Analytics. I'm delighted to have a few minutes to talk to you this morning. The topic this morning came actually from several people who sent in questions and a few clients who asked us questions. What do you do from a management issue with regard to the really expensive drugs? What do you do? Fundamentally, we have the following problem. Number one, if a drug is very expensive, like the new specialty medications, we have the problem that the patient can't afford the copay no matter what the cost is. It's greater than most people make for a living, or if it is, it's a very large percentage of what their overall income is. Number two, if you're a health plan, the threat is that you're going to break the budget. If you're, with regard to what goes on with a PBM or otherwise, they are resurrecting techniques that have been used with standard medications for some time. Namely, if you have a brand and there are other opportunities or brands that treat the same condition or the same disease, then they're coming up with competition between the different manufacturers to get a cheaper cost. This is a good thing. It's a very good thing. However, when you have really expensive drugs, the copay or coinsurance for the drug can be significant. And when we look at the average cost of what goes on, or the average income of what people have at about $50,000 a year, and copays can be significant, $10,000, $15,000 or more, this is a significant percentage of what their overall income is. So there's a barrier there. So on one level, there's the issue of trying to have competition. If the drug has no competition, then clearly there is a problem. And at the very beginning of specialty meds a few years ago, that was an issue. Today, there's more competition. The second issue is what goes on from a health plan standpoint, where the health plan is looking at the problem and they're saying this is going to break the budget. So what are we going to do? Well, what they're looking for them is to say, we should try more restrictive prior authorization criteria. And prior authorization criteria are limited in general to, is the drug FDA approved? Is it FDA approved for the given indication? Is the quantity appropriate for the time span that the patient is going to be receiving it? Namely, is it for a week, a couple of weeks, a month, whatever? And then also, is the dose appropriate for whatever the indication is? These are common pre-authorization or prior authorization criteria that people are following. The other part of this is, what do you do about general cost of drugs? Because even if you look at this, there is a percentage of these drugs that are brand. There's a percentage of them that are generic, because many of these drugs are being used as a combination. They're being used for a few drugs that will treat the main condition, and then other drugs that will be used adjunctively to ensure the fact that the patient doesn't have nausea or whatever the problems are, that there's some adjunctive therapy. So as we look at this, the solution to cost has to be both a brand, generic, multi-source type of problem, with the idea being that the general consensus is that there is a maximum allowable cost list, which effectively says I won't pay more than this particular number. That applies potentially to standard drugs. It applies to the specialty drugs and others, and in so doing, there's a methodology there to try and control that cost. Now, admittedly, and without being self-promoting here, ProData Analytics and ProPharma do deal with negotiation of these kind of programs. We deal with custom MAC lists in order to ensure that all of the premium goes back to the health plans or to the payers so that they're involved in it. But taking those away from a management standpoint, the real issue that everyone has is that the drug is expensive and you're not going to find a simpler way to it. So having said that, that means that you have to come up with other methods of payment. The other methods of payment have been tried so far to be whether you draw it from plan, or whether you have some sort of other community that can help you, like a religious community or otherwise. But more and more people are going to have to look at other methods, such as you use for paying for a house, a car, or otherwise, because these are expensive. And when you look at it, they are treading on the ground of being as expensive as a hospital visit, as expensive or even more expensive than some of them, so that you have to have other means of financing these things, not just paying for them outright. And finally, with regard to this overall system is that we have to be very sensitive to the fact that most of the drugs that we deal with today don't treat everyone. Even people who have common illnesses are treated by certain conditions. A low-severity patient can be treated with diet, exercise, weight loss, etc. It may not need any kind of therapy. People who have mid or high severity may need treatment, but then the question is, how are they going to reach target to do that? And many of them don't need some of the more expensive therapies to do that. Some of them do. And so it's very important to do risk stratification, identify where does someone fit, what is their risk for this, and what are they willing to accept. This is now a very cooperative kind of approach, where a physician provider, a pharmacist, a patient, nurses, and otherwise are all involved trying to work together to find ways in order to limit these costs. I hope this has been of benefit. In future times, we will talk about other issues. We have been looking at multiple schedules of doing this, and we've decided that next week we'll start on a Wednesday schedule, and we'll do these on Wednesdays. I would strongly suggest that you go to propharmaconsultants.com /RxInfoX, RxInfoX.html. It's a free exercise. We're just trying to bring all of the information that is available on the web on multiple topics of healthcare for your interest. I hope you find that of interest. Make sure to click follow on our webpage, and you'll see a future broadcast notification. And we look forward to your comments. Have an outstanding day.